hard muted during the presentation, but you can use the panel to enter and key in questions during the presentation that you might have, or you can wait till the end and everyone will be unmuted and you'll be able to come off mute and ask questions directly. So with that, again, thank you for joining. I'm going to turn it over to Ben.
Thanks, Pam. Hey, folks. I'm going to go ahead and get started here, and then Aaron's going to follow me. We'll just begin with a quick agenda. Today, we're going to cover two topics that I think we're finding most of our customers find exciting. The new policy manager interface and new projects related to API intelligence and infrastructure management. Before we get started, just quick reminder about our community. We have a Layer7 community out on Broadcom's community portal, where you'll see, updates for what we're working on in our next PI. That's where we announce experimental features within our progressive delivery model. And then there's just a whole lot of additional knowledge that can be gained out there. There is a forum. Users are pretty actively participating in that. We encourage you to too if you haven't been out there. With that, we'll start with the new policy manager interface. So this is an initiative we began perhaps a little over a year ago now, beginning with some requirements gathering, some customer interviewing, but we really hit the ground running with a funded project team late last year, and they've made a lot of quick progress, as I think you'll see today. The new policy manager interface is meant to be a new modern web UI replacement for policy manager. So you'll be able to browse this new interface in your browser. And the immediate goal of it is to replace policy manager. We don't want to have to maintain two user interfaces for the gateway. And as we go about doing that, we're going to focus on the things we feel we have to carry over from old policy manager to new policy manager. That might not be everything. We're going to have an eye out for things our customers don't use anymore, or things that we're providing another, possibly even better alternative for configuring than doing it through policy manager. Now, at the same time, we're going to deliver enhancements of opportunity, I'll call them. The priority is replacing policy manager, but there's many things we've wanted to do in policy manager over the years that we either couldn't do because it wasn't in a browser, or we put on the back burner for higher priorities, or frankly, we've come up with a very long list of new ideas we want to deliver in the new policy manager over time. And so we're going to be delivering as much of those as we can while trying not to slow down the policy manager replacement. Now, when we began this initiative, we considered many different ways that we could host the new policy manager UI. We thought about doing it in the portal. We thought about deploying it as a separate web server that would host the UI and connect out to one or more gateways. We also thought about doing it on the gateway itself. And frankly, based on user feedback, we decided to start with hosting it on the gateway itself, such that when we deliver this as preview in 11.2, when you deploy an 11.2 or later gateway, it'll deploy with the new UI. So you can deploy your gateway, browse the new UI, and start using it right away. Now, that's something that will allow you to turn off. So if you don't want to serve up this UI in a production environment, for example, you wouldn't have to. But this is one way to make it easily available to everybody as they deploy their gateways. A little bit around timelines. We have, again, done a lot already in what we've been referring to as our proof of technology milestone, which is near complete. And we're ready to start working with partners and customers to do usability testing. So our UX team would like to start reaching out to you and have you do guided usability testing with them so that we can start collecting your feedback early. So we have been working with some partners and customers on that already, but we're putting the call out that we would like to have volunteers. So if any of you are interested in participating in that, please contact me directly. If you like, you could put your contact information in a private chat in this meeting, and then I'll collect that and reach back out to you. It's going to be a guided usability testing experience. So it'll be very focused. It shouldn't take a lot of your time, but it'll give you some early hands-on to the new policy manager and allow you to influence its direction, right? At the same time, we're working towards being able to offer an experimental version of this by the end of June. So like any experimental feature within our progressive delivery model, when that's ready, we'll announce it in the Layer7 community portal like we talked about on the agenda slide. And then you can reach out through the portal or directly to me to ask to have access to that experimental version. It'll probably be delivered as a container shared with you via box. It'll be purely to experiment with. It's not something we'd recommend you use in a production environment. It's not something we would support in a production environment. However, we have a pretty aggressive go to deliver this as preview with the next major gateway release 11.2, which is currently targeting end of October. And when it's delivered as preview, it'll come with that gateway release. So everybody will have that upgrades to that gateway release will have immediate access to preview it. And that also generally means to use in a non-production environment with support through the community, not Broadcom support. But as many of you are becoming aware, most of the features we deliver as preview, we consider production ready and would agree to provide Broadcom support for the use in production environments to a short list of customers that request and receive that approval. And that kind of just represents a bit of a trial period while we get some early adopters using those features in production at scale so that, we can provide them with even better support, learn from them before we GA those features. So this new policy manager interface should be ready as preview in Gateway 11.2, currently targeting in October. Now, long term, we need to take it from preview to GA. Even when it's GA, it won't necessarily be ready to replace policy manager altogether. That would come next. And then we even have a backlog of other things we would like to do in this new policy manager, even beyond replacing old policy manager. Now, some of those things are going to include integrating this new user interface directly into the portal, and especially the existing API management user experience, such that, for example, where today you can publish APIs from the portal and you can author their policies by selecting configurable policy templates. Perhaps in the future, we'll let you publish an API from the portal and author its policy from the portal with this drag and drop policy assertion user experience that you're familiar with it in old policy manager and that you'll still have available to you in new policy manager. We also have another new project that's starting soon that's going to manifest itself in the portal. We're calling it infrastructure management. That's going to be all about managing multiple gateways across environments and migrating configuration between them using more sophisticated capabilities, supporting perhaps automated patch management from a single central control plane. So you could also imagine that if you're managing multiple gateways or clusters of gateways there, that you would be able to drill down to a specific gateway that's being managed there and come right back to this new policy manager user experience for controlling the configuration of that gateway directly. And then again, like I said, we've got a long backlog of other things we'd like to do. We're going to add single sign-on now that we're in a browser, and that'll be easier to do. We're going to complete the policy as code capabilities as we deliver assertions for this policy manager replacement. We have ideas about integrating directly with Git repositories, adding test automation, and again, a whole lot more. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and start demonstrating the new policy manager interface to you. So here I've deployed a container gateway running in Docker on my laptop, and I'm browsing the policy manager interface for that gateway. I'm going to go ahead and log in. and I land on the home page, which has been designed to bring, you know, every user one step away from where they want to go inside a policy manager, whether they're a API developer that is publishing APIs and authoring their policies, or they're a administrator that is just managing entities like cluster-wide properties or certificates. Across the top, you'll have shortcuts to the most common things we think our users want to do, but then you'll be able to otherwise access everything that you would have been able to access in old Policy Manager directly. If you're going in as someone that wants to publish an API, you can do that, and I'll do that in a second. But if you're going in to, you know, make changes to an API you've already published, you'll also see the services and policies view in this sidebar here, and you can just click an existing service to go directly to it. But let me go ahead and publish a service. Now, we're normalizing the term service and API and the task of publishing one of those into a single combined user experience, whether it's going to be a SOAP service or a REST API, whether you're going to do that manually or you're going to use a definition file for those like a WSDL or an OpenAPI spec or a Swagger document. It'll all get done here. So for this example, I'm going to go ahead and publish a pet store API using the OpenAPI spec for pet store. So I'm going to go ahead and select to upload it. I could point to a URL that I get that from. In this case, it's showing me the file that's been uploaded, and then it auto-populated some of the required fields for publishing a new API in the gateway. I'll go ahead and save that, and it'll take me right to the policy authoring view of this new Policy Manager user interface. You'll notice it looks very familiar. While there's a lot of things we wanted to do differently to improve your user experience, we wanted to maintain some things that everybody has liked about Policy Manager, and especially for familiarity, so that as an old Policy Manager user, you should be able to transition very quickly and easily to new Policy Manager. So in the upper left-hand corner, you got your palette of assertions. That'll be searchable. So for example, if I want to require SSL for this API, I can search for that, drag and drop it. I can see its configuration in this sidebar where we're going to present the properties of your assertions in your policy. You'll be able to navigate your policy and see the current configuration of the services very easily without having to do a lot of context switching between pop-up menus that would open that you'd have to close. I could go ahead and add a few more here. Let's just require SSL. Let's require basic auth. Some of those assertions don't have properties to configure. You'll still see the sidebar for them. And that's because there's actions you can perform on those assertions here, like disabling, enabling, moving them up and down, disabling or enabling them, deleting them, or more, wherever you were able to perform actions to one or more assertions in your policies and Policy Manager. You'll be able to do the same things here in the Policy Manager replacement. Last, let's go ahead and add authentication against the internal identity provider. Now, when you make a change to the configuration of a policy assertion, then the sidebar becomes modal, so that you have the opportunity to cancel that change before applying it. Once you've made a change to the policy of your API, you'll have the same opportunity to save a new version of it, but not make it active, or save and make active that new version. Down in the lower left-hand corner, you'll have a searchable view of all your services and policies, the folder hierarchy of all your services and policies. If you select them, you can go between them. And just to show you that this is all happening to the gateway like you would expect from a normal Policy Manager connection, I can switch over to a normal Policy Manager connection to that same gateway. I do a refresh, and here's my policy with the assertions that I added to it. Now, another nice thing about the new policy manager user interfaces, we're going to add a lot more context sensitive help throughout it. One of the first place that'll manifest itself is for the assertions themselves. In the sidebar, you'll have a link that'll take you to the tech docs for that assertion. So no more wondering about how to use an assertion, having to go to the tech docs and try to find the tech docs for that assertion. You can do it right through Policy Manager. So the API publishing, policy authoring, user experience is definitely one of the big things people use Policy Manager for. Another thing they use it for is managing the configuration of the many other entities that exist on the gateway. So if we go back to the home page, for example, we can go and manage cluster-wide properties. Here you see a list view of the cluster-wide properties that I have configured on this gateway. This list view is going to be common for all of the entities that are managed on the gateway. So you might remember we only recently added the ability to filter and sort cluster-wide properties by name or value. You're going to get that automatically for cluster-wide properties, not just name or value, but also any other properties you want to add as columns to this view, and for every other entity. So you're going to get all these basic list management capabilities for everything inside Policy Manager. So for example, I could add description, I could add the GUID, not that you probably want to have to look at that, but you'll be able to view all of the properties of any entity in this table. You'll be able to further filter this table. And then what you don't see now, but what is on the roadmap for Policy Manager and this general list management set of capabilities is the ability to save views that you've configured. So if you're a user that comes in here and you're looking for a certain something all the time, and that requires you to filter and sort and display different columns every time you go to do that, you only have to do that once. You can save the view, and then you can easily load that saved view again later. You'll be able to control how many entities you see on a page, and if you have more entities than that, you'll be able to paginate through all your entities down the lower right-hand corner. So those are some of the big things we wanted to be able to demonstrate to you today. Again, we are putting the call out for volunteers to do usability testing with us. Again, it would be a very guided exercise with our UX engineers. So if you're interested in doing this, please reach out and we will get you signed up for that. So with that, we do have a question, and I guess there's something that I didn't show you. You're asking about what is the hidden property. My guess is you're referring to a column. I guess I'm not sure what the question is. Aniket, you could.
Yeah, I think it's explaining what that hidden property is. What is it?
Oh, that. You know what? Honestly, that's a good question. I'll have to find that out. I didn't even see that one in the list.
I think that's for cluster-wide properties that by default don't show up, right? They only show up in the cluster-wide properties current window if you edit. So I think with that. There is another question, Ben, which is will this be browser only, or will there be a Java client like Policy Manager app?
No, this will be browser only. We will be moving away from the thick Java client, and when this is ready to replace Policy Manager, that will go away. Now that will be, at least a year, possibly years away. But the idea is to just have a browser UI to configure your games. I didn't show you the user experience of actually adding a new cluster-wide property, but it's very similar to what you'd be used to in Policy Manager. You'll be able to see and search for all of the existing cluster-wide properties that are hidden. You'll be able to add your own custom cluster-wide properties otherwise.
There's a couple more questions, Ben, if you want me to read them out.
Yeah, sure.
How is the impact to the performance on the gateway in terms of memory usage?
It should be minimal. First of all, the footprint of PM, the new policy manager replacement on the gateway will be minimal. It's also mostly a client-side application that makes Graphman API calls or some other special purpose API calls needed to support this user experience with the gateway. And those are very performant. Again, you will be able to disable this in environments if you do not want users to be able to browse to gateways in those environments. But so far, the performance, the footprint has been minimal, performance has been optimal. We have no concerns about that ourselves at this point.
There's two more from Daniel. One is I'd like to be part of the testing. Daniel, we will definitely reach out. Thank you for sharing your email. We'll reach out to you. And then the other one, which I think is related to the first question, is PM consumes a lot of memory to a workstation. I don't know whether that's a statement about running it on your desktop and you're glad that it'll now be a browser application, or whether you're saying that PM consumes a lot on the gateway. You put those together. Yeah.
Obviously we're leaving a lot of that baggage behind by going to a new browser-based tech stack. Again, its footprint on the gateway's light. Memory utilization should be minimal. It's mostly client-side in your browser making API calls to the gateway. It's primarily using Graphman to do that, which is much more performant than RESTman. And it may use a handful of other specialized APIs for services we don't want to build into Graphman just to support the user experience. So a lot of those long-standing complaints with the thick, the old thick policy manager client are going to go away.
Yeah, I think it should be light to both ends, right? Which is a win. Daniel said thanks. There is another question, Daniel, that you have, which is around migrating policies between environments. I'll talk about that in a second specifically. And then somebody says, can you demonstrate the service import export with one click? I don't know if that's actually ready yet, Ben. We're showing.
It's not ready yet, but you'll find that manifesting itself in several ways. So first of all, we're going to continue to support the, export import of policy like you can currently do in Policy Manager, because there are users that, customers that have used those capabilities to create policy templates that they use as a starting point for the policies of the API. So that's not going to go away. And that will be available as policy export, policy import, buttons on the title bar of a policy in the policy authoring view. But we're going to add a new capability in time for preview to export, import Graphman bundles at different levels of the service and policy folder hierarchy. So you'll be able to go down to a service or policy and export it with or without its dependencies as a Graphman bundle. You'll be able to go to a folder and export it and all of its contents with or without dependencies as a Graphman bundle, or you'll be able to go to the top level and do a full export of your gateway configuration as a Graphman bundle. So that's been a request as far back as RESTman, then with Graphman, that we provide a way to easily do that through a UI, so that if you want to have those bundles, you don't necessarily have to drop down to a CLI or make direct API calls to do it. Now that's going to be a limited set of capability in the new Policy Manager replacement, because as Aaron's going to talk about, we have ideas about a lot more sophisticated capabilities for creating manifests for migration that could be version to migrate configuration between gateways, between environments. So we'll be adding even more capability.
Cool. There's a thank you on that one, Ben. That's a cool feature. And another volunteer for us for doing some testing for us, being part of that testing team. So hopefully Pam, these get saved, the question, so we can, or at least we can trap those emails. Maybe Ben, you
Oh
can
yeah, they get recorded, so
Awesome.
no worries.
Thank you. All right, given we're about halfway, why don't we switch gears? As you can tell, right, we're very excited about the new policy manager, and that was that was something we wanted to talk about today. But there's also another project that we're working on that we think is equally as exciting. So let me just share my. Did that?
Looks like you're presenter now.
Oh, there he goes. Yeah. See?
Yep, we can
Okay, cool.
see the slides, but not in presenter mode.
Okay.
Right
Let's
now,
answer
it's
that now. Yep. Okay, so yeah, we'll keep you up to date on Policy Manager. We definitely, have some clear goals, but the ideas around it, what else we can do we have some cool ideas. We definitely want to hear from you. And that's also true on this project. So we've been looking at management and intelligence for a little while. Customers of Layer 7 are using more and more APIs for sure, and more infrastructure. And we wanted to tackle some of the things that, some of the issues or complexities people have with doing that. I think we settled on the best way of doing policy manager replacement, authoring, putting it on the gateway, but putting some of these other things that we want to do on that gateway would not be the right thing. So I'm going to talk about a journey that we're going to be going through. I'd say this is a little bit less defined than Ben's, because there's a lot of, is this the right thing to concentrate? Is this the right thing? Whereas policy manager, we know we can add value add, but we want to start with replacing the existing tool. So what I'm going to talk about is the evolution of our portal product. So, if you've been around Layer 7 for a while, you'll know that we have a product. Its full name is Layer 7 Developer Portal Enhanced Experience. Thankfully, we tend to drop the enhanced experience quite a bit, but it's an API management tool, right? It's around governing and controlling the publishing and sharing of APIs with API consumers, and all the good stuff that goes around that, API keys and secrets, and sharing certificates for APIs and all that good stuff. We've been adding a lot of capability to that over the last few years. And it's also the developer side, right? It's how do I consume an API? How do I get an API key? How does the API product owner control my consumption, that kind of thing. So that has been part of our portfolio for a long time. It's provided as a SaaS and an on-prem solution, and we have a number of customers using that, and some that don't use it, right? But it's the ideal platform really for us to evolve and add more of these management and intelligence capabilities. So what you're going to see over the next few months and years is we will rename the portal. Anything in gray means we haven't actually agreed that as a team, but we will rename the portal platform, if you like, to have some more generic terms, because what we're going to add doesn't fit. So we'll have Layer 7 API management that will continue to evolve and be part of this portal platform, but we're going to add two other key sets of capabilities, and loosely labeling them at the moment, that's around security intelligence. So by security intelligence, we mean a number of different levels. So as you'll see in the demo that I'll do in a few minutes, we've started on configuration intelligence. So the entities that you have in the gateway have different, all of them have different requirements, all of them have different importance level, but we want to raise that up. And you'll see we've started with a couple of key ones that we hear feedback on around managing keys and certificates and the expiry dates and that kind of stuff. So we'll look at that entity management. Then we'll drill down and look at not only entities, but policies and services. What kind of thing can we show you in that? Could it be that we're going to give you intelligence on, hey, you have an API that you're exposing, the policy looks good, but there's some assertions in there that are redundant, or badly configured. Maybe you've missed out having mutual TLS or TLS at all on your routing assertions. Somebody changed that. So starting with entities, then we'll look at policy and services, and then the third step of that will be looking at the traffic itself. As something happens going through the gateway, what value can we get from that? What intelligent information can we give to you? We've kind of talked a lot internally about, do we put AI in front of this? I think that's where we could actually start to use some AI-powered analysis of that runtime traffic. You know, a lot of organizations and other vendors out there have just put AI in front of everything. I think this is intelligence that could be boosted by AI, but to start with, this is more about just the I than the A. So that's part of what we're looking at. And then, you know, to one or two of the questions that came up from Ben's presentation, we will also then look at infrastructure management. So things like being able to author policy or push policy from one environment to another, being able to do repository management. That could be managing bundles from a gateway, but it could be also managing bundles from GitHub and pushing them out via a deployment or migration process that goes to, you know, gateways that are on different environments. Again, a lot of this is to be defined, and I would encourage you to keep on that community site that Ben put the reminder on page 1, because that's where we will be sharing and asking for feedback, as well as, you know, reaching out to customers that we know and work with well already. If you want to be part of that, the community is definitely a good place to go. And then there's some, you know, some other things that we could do, like patch management. I think that's one where lots of our customers would see benefit if you could manage the patches and deploy the patches from a central infrastructure. That would be, in my opinion, that would be pretty awesome. So lots to do, lots to decide. Portal will definitely evolve as the platform that provides all these things. It makes a lot of sense. It's already connecting to our gateways. It's already managing APIs. But if you only wanted to use the, you know, the left-hand part or the middle part, you wouldn't be forced to use Layer7 for your API management. We'd hope customers would see value in all of those things, but that's the goal. So I have a demo of the very first part of security intelligence, and it's as Ben says, it's a very early demo. We were trying to share early here. We're definitely keen on getting ideas. I was in Europe a couple of weeks back. I showed this slide, and, you know, straight away customers came with cool ideas. Now we've shown this more publicly. Greg, who's on vacation today, will probably put a post in the community to start getting ideas and working out what we want to prioritize over what. But I will now, unless anyone's got any questions, I'm going to move and demonstrate some of this live. Ben, can you keep an eye on the questions bit, because I've had to kind of move that move that button away.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Logging into the developer portal, it looks.
Oh, you know what? Before you go too much further, I wasn't sure if it was a go-to-meeting thing myself, but the attendees are saying the same. Your screen's getting cut off. So there was a.
Oh, is it this?
Seeing your full slide, and we're not seeing probably your full screen right now.
Okay, let me just.
I see a zoom, and yeah, that looks better actually.
That's better?
That's better.
Okay, I'll just go back to the slide so everyone can see it in full in case something was being blocked in. So yeah, this is why I was talking about, you know, the portal API management capabilities will stay there, but we want to add these intelligence and infrastructure management capabilities in as we go along. So yeah, that's what I'm going to show now. I'm going to show this top part. So literally all you missed, if you missed it, was me logging in. We have this intelligence button. I'm sure the menu layout and things will change. When you come into this intelligence screen, the first thing you see is it's almost like a dashboard, right? And you'll see that we've got rules and things here. So this is, you know, certificates expiring within the next 90 days. This is certificates. So this is all my trusted certificates. And for any of these on the dashboard, I can actually go in. There's a rule behind it. So if I go in here, actually that one was badly configured. So let me just cancel that. So here we've got the rules. Here's the subject. For our subject is trusted certificates. Any conditions. I'd clearly edited that and not pulled it back. So if I change that to 90 days, you'll see that now I see these 90, any certificates that are exposing in 90 days. If I delete that completely, you'll see I now see all the certificates that I have. So you can use this to just give you a view of all the certificates or all the trusted certificates you've got, or you could do it to, you know, nail it down. If you nail it down, so I'll add that condition back. Oh, which one did I have? 1 second. Let me just go back. See what I screwed up there. Hang on. Yeah. So if I go back, luckily I didn't save that. You can see. Oh, that's why I chose the wrong thing. I should have chose rolling days less than 30. So if I put that to 60, for instance, I can then just get a view of any of those certificates that will expire in 60 days. And then you'll be able to do actions on those, right? The dashboard's interesting and cool if you want to see those kinds of things, but actually what you're more likely to want to do is actions. The first action, kind of fairly obviously in our view, is to send an email. So here you can see I'm saying I want a daily email, so any certificates or that are going to expire will go off. Greg's advertising his email address there, and you can decide what content you want to put in there. So this is really about, you know, this is one of the biggest pains we hear from customers. You know, you have to trail the logs, you have to look for the certificate that's going to expire within 90 days. That's a pain. So this is a way for us to kind of automate that, and it's the first step of our intelligence project. We picked that one because it's, you know, fairly straightforward and easy, but I think there's a whole load of things you can do. You'll see here, I've got JDBC connections. Maybe you want to have a standard around how JDBC connections work. You'll see here I've got a mixture of some are using SSL and some aren't. Maybe this is a real red flag to your organization. So if I go in and edit this rule, I can add a condition. I can say in the URL, if we see SSL equals false, we can hit apply. You'll see now this only shows that one, and I could then add an action to this to make sure that that is getting promoted out rather than just visible on the dashboard. By the way, you'll see here you can have removed from dashboard. So not all your rules need to be shown in the dashboard. Like I said, we've chosen the entities to start with. A lot of that is because we wanted to work on how things are connecting underneath, how we store those things, the APIs we need, etc. You know, thankfully with GraphMan, which most of you should be very aware of, we're able to do a lot of these things very easily. But this is definitely the first stage. We've built the infrastructure, we built that. We started on entities, and like I said, we're starting to look at how we can do the same sort of thing in policy. We will probably provide some out-of-the-box rules and ideas of what those rules should be, but you'll also be able to build any rules you want yourself, you know, using that. So it's not like you have to make do with the rules we provide. I think that was all I had to demo today, so hopefully that made sense. Like I said, this is a little bit earlier. We definitely know what we want to do around the, if I just nip back to the slides, around some of this intelligence stuff. This is a lot easier for us to define. We have a lot of this intelligence within our team at Broadcom, so building some of those rules out of the box will definitely be something we can do, put in the product, but also advise customers on. I think some of the things around infrastructure management, we definitely want to listen to what you guys need and have requirements for. So again, definitely reach out on that. I will try and find the questions tab again.
Yeah, there's been quite a few that have come in, but also to let everyone know they can unmute themselves now and ask questions directly if they'd like.
Yeah, while people do that, I'll just say we got a shout out from Anikit for keeping the Layer7 name. So that goes way back. we're happy we can do that at Broadcom too. And then Enzo asked a question that you answered near the end, Aaron. You know, and it was related to, will the intelligence be able to go all the way down to the policy level to look for the, you know, how policies do or don't have, you know, certain assertions or assertions configured in a certain way. Is the intent of
Hey, Ben, your audio is, for me at least, is cutting in and out pretty badly.
Oh.
I don't know if it was for everybody else. It might have just been my end. But yeah, I think that, you know, that's part of what we want. Be able to give people a view of that. And dependency management is something that we, you know, we can agree is going to be a requirement in both the things we've shown this morning, right? So yeah. I think there's a comment there that Layer 7 shouldn't have a space in the name. That's thank you for that. We must have made a mistake somewhere along the line. But I don't know if you noticed that on Ben's Policy Manager 2, we've also reintroduced the little 3 cube icon, which has made a lot of people smile and reminisce. But yeah, we're glad we can keep Layer 7 as a name for sure. There was a little bit of time under CA where we had to call it the API gateway. Broadcom gave us that flexibility to bring Layer 7 back. I think we're all glad for that.
Great. So as Pam said, you can come off mute and ask questions.
Yeah, I think we covered all the questions. But if someone, you know, thinks we did not, please come off mute and ask your question.
Hey, I have a question. Right, in a highly service meshed organizations or enterprises, right? Do you have plans for your intelligence features to sort of provide capabilities where the, the API gateway can suggest or have an ability to bring sort of create mesh based on the coexistence with other components in the infrastructure?
So, Aaron, you want me to take that?
Yeah, I wasn't sure I fully understood it, so that might be a good idea.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I fully understood it either, Nikhil, but I mean, a service mesh would be something very different than the intelligence capabilities that we would add to the port array. And when people think of solutions like ours in a service mesh, they're thinking of sidecar gateways that, you know, operate adjacent to the containers hosting your microservices. They're thinking of a centralized control plane for those sidecar gateways. We've looked at that before. We decided it's something that we're not going to pursue because there hasn't been a strong market that materialized around that. And any vendors offering commercial solutions are generally doing that on top of open source. And from what we know about them, it really isn't a successful part of the business. So from a product perspective, we plan to still remain a more traditional gateway that gets deployed to the edge of a microservice architecture like that. Now, from the intelligence perspective, however, we are starting to consume, you know, data from our own solutions as input to the rules engine and that drives the intelligence. But we are considering getting that input from other sources too. So we could collect input from a service mesh. And at least from our product perspective, while you saw one action that Aaron showed we could take automatically when a rule is triggered would be emailing. Another action we could take would be to call back to the gateway and have it dynamically change the policies that it's enforcing to block threats that are being detected by intelligence, for example. And so if we can do that back to the gateway, we probably could also extend that to a service mesh to become an intelligent control plane for a service mesh sometime down the road. But that's kind of how we look at service meshes in general, and how what we're doing with intelligence might align with that in the future. Aaron, do you want to add to anything like that?
Yeah, I think the service mesh response is complete there, and I think that's clear. I think on the intelligence side though, as we start to look at the API traffic itself, I think there's a whole lot of things we could do. And as Ben said, we're not limiting ourselves necessarily to just the gateway, right? For either the intelligence or the management side, we've got some pretty lofty goals in there and some complex things to tackle. But what about being able to get some of that data from your Kubernetes environment, whether it's a service mesh or not? Would you be able to control those kinds of things? Say, how big you want your how you want your pods to scale, that kind of stuff. So there's definitely some stuff we want to do about outside of just the gateway. I think from analyzing those policies being executed, we might be able to do a whole host of things, like suggest changes to policy, for example. But yeah, we'll have to see as those things go on and how people want those things to action out.
Understood. Another question, right? And still trying to figure out how to frame it, but as you mentioned, like on the edge side, to be more on the traditional aspect of the things, right? And also nowadays, as there are no more boundaries, right, within the networks, and we're also looking a lot more expansion into the OT, IoT side of the things. So on the security side of the house, how do you think our Layer 7 API gateways can complement some of the the hardware devices that that are on the front side of the IoT and OT devices? So consider like you have an IoT OT devices network, which is front-ended with their hardware devices or gateways, and then we have our Layer 7 API gateway. In that kind of scenario, how it can complement those gateways, or are there any formal plans around that?
We looked at IoT very early on, when it was just starting to trend. And when we did that, we added capabilities around more lightweight messaging protocols that we thought would be more prevalently used with IoT, like MQTT, XMPP. And we've long supported, we've supported those protocols ever since. We haven't seen a lot of use of those, and the IoT space has definitely become more specialized. From our perspective, we could play a part in an end-to-end IoT architecture, but our emphasis would still be on the APIs, right? So anywhere APIs are being exposed in that architecture, we'd still be a gateway to those APIs. We don't currently have any plans to pursue IoT specifically with additional capabilities. So just the demand hasn't materialized, but that's something we'd always be interested in. If that's something that your business is looking at doing and you're seeing opportunities and, to use your Layer 7 gateways in some new way together with IoT, I'd love to hear more about it. But otherwise, it's not really something we're hearing. A lot of it's something we explored very early on. There was never a lot of demand for it, and we don't do a lot specific to IoT today that isn't related to APIs.
Thank you.
There's one more question that popped up, Ben. We started working on a few custom elk charts for the intelligence and proactive monitoring initiative. I'm intrigued to see what new feature sets in the pipeline for advanced intelligence. Yeah, that's definitely one of those areas that I think that was that we've progressed a lot with things like OTel to provide our customers that capability to get that information to where they want it and to be able to look at it, produce an elk chart, whatever that helps you make those decisions. I think it's probably, we have solutions similar to elk, within the Broadcom family. So we definitely don't want to build a complete, dashboard reporting system to try and compete with those. We want to be able to provide those things out. I think the intelligence we want to analyze, display, and bring into the intelligence part is more around very specific to the policy and the things going through there. So less analytics of necessarily what the API is doing, but more specifically around the infrastructure that Layer7 provides. But that's definitely an area where I would say we're not 100% baked on everything we're going to do there, and that's some interesting feedback. Okay, so we're coming up to the end of the call. Pam, have I missed any questions?
I don't think so, Aaron, but again, we will get a report and we can look through them and certainly email out because we know who asked the question.
Yep.
So we can answer it that way.
Cool.
Lots of good participation today. That's awesome.
Yeah, we kind of thought this was couple of exciting topics for everybody, and yeah, thanks for all the energy and questions. It's kind of proved that we were right on that. And I'll just say once more that going to the community and keeping up to date there, if you're not in regular contact with the team, is a good way to keep up to date and give us your feedback.
Absolutely. And thank you all for joining. We appreciate your
Thanks, folks.
participation.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Yep, thanks very much. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Pam.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.